Warriors, welcome back to Gods of Alliance. If you're here, it means you want power, knowledge, and control over the battlefield. This is not luck. This is strategy. Let's break the game together. And before we begin, if these guides are helping you understand your heroes, improve your teams, and make better decisions with your resources, leave a like and subscribe to Gods of Alliance. Your support helps us continue testing, comparing, and bringing you the guides you need to improve your account. Today we're going back to one of the most powerful free-to-play heroes we've ever received in Hero Wars Alliance, Polaris and Guardians. I don't say that lightly. Polaris is, in my opinion, probably the best free-to-play hero we've ever had in the game. She's powerful, she's accessible, she brings incredible control, she can deal serious magic damage. But above everything else, there is one mechanic that makes Polaris absolutely exceptional. Her fourth skill, Aurora Borealis. Because Polaris isn't only here to stun the enemy, she's here to make stunned enemies take an enormous amount of additional magic damage. And when you start building teams around repeated stuns, especially with progress heroes, Polaris can transform the damage potential of the entire composition. So today, we're going through the complete Polaris guide. Her skills, her skins, her glyphs, her artifacts, gift of the elements, talismans, and finally, how you can counter her. Let's start with her first skill, Pulsing Comet. Polaris launches an ice comet behind the enemy team, stunning enemies for up to 6 seconds while dealing damage every half second. Enemies further away from the impact point receive a shorter duration. And the power of this skill scales with Polaris's magic attack. This is already an excellent skill by itself. We're combining AoE magic damage with one of the strongest forms of control in the game, stun. 6 seconds can completely change a battle. You're stopping attacks, you're stopping skills, you're interrupting the enemy's rhythm, and you're buying valuable time for the rest of your team. But we can push the damage much further. If the enemy's magic defense is reduced through something like Iris or Krista, Polaris can punish them much harder. Or we can approach it from the opposite direction and increase our magic penetration with heroes such as Orion or Miyu. And remember this throughout the entire guide. Every stun Polaris creates can potentially become part of something much bigger because of Aurora Borealis. Next we have Glacial Fortress. Polaris creates an ice obstacle on the battlefield. Whenever enemies attack that obstacle, Polaris receives 70 energy. The fortress survives 3 hits before exploding, stunning nearby enemies for 1 second and dealing damage. And this mechanic can be incredibly annoying. The important part isn't how much damage the enemy deals. It's the number of hits. You can deal enormous damage with one attack, and it still doesn't instantly solve the problem. Against certain compositions that rely heavily on frontal attacks, Polaris can continuously interrupt their rhythm while accelerating herself through the additional energy. And once that fortress explodes, another stun. That's important, because once again, Polaris doesn't see a stun as simply control. For Polaris, stuns are part of her offensive engine. Folio's Inkblot and Astrid and Lucas can also create additional obstacles and make this type of battlefield even more frustrating for the opponent. Then comes Shooting Star. Polaris throws a star shard into the center of the enemy team. Enemies around the shard take damage and are stunned for 3 seconds. And here's another very interesting part. The area of effect increases by 25% for every Way of Progress ally beside Polaris. So now, team construction starts becoming extremely important. Put Polaris together with heroes like Judge and Orion, and we're not simply adding more progress heroes. We're increasing the area affected by Shooting Star while simultaneously bringing additional magic damage and, importantly, additional stuns. And that takes us directly into the skill that defines Polaris, Aurora Borealis. Guardians. This is the skill you need to understand if you want to understand why Polaris is so powerful. Whenever Polaris or one of her allies stuns an enemy who is already stunned, that enemy receives Radiance for 8 seconds. And an enemy affected by Radiance takes 50% increased magic damage. But damage coming from progress heroes? 100% increased magic damage. Think about what that actually means. Polaris isn't simply another control hero sitting in your backline. She's an enormous magic damage amplifier. And the more reliably your composition can chain stuns together, the more dangerous this mechanic becomes. Judge fits beautifully into this concept because of his repeated control. Orion can bring additional offensive pressure while benefiting enormously from what Polaris creates. Astrid and Lucas can contribute additional stun interactions while also belonging to progress. This is where Polaris becomes special. You're not only asking how much damage Polaris herself can produce, you're asking how much additional damage Polaris allows the entire team to produce. And in a properly constructed stun composition, that difference can be enormous. Now, let's build her correctly. Polaris currently has 4 skins: her default skin, Armor, Magic Attack, and Health, with its Super Skin version. My first priority is Magic Attack. 3 of Polaris's skills scale with Magic Attack, so increasing it improves her individual damage and allows those abilities to become more threatening while she's controlling the battlefield. Next comes Health. Polaris needs to stay alive. Simple as that. Aurora Borealis can completely change the offensive potential of your team, but none of that matters if Polaris disappears too early. Increasing health gives her more survivability against different types of damage and more time to create stuns and activate her mechanics. After that, I would prioritize the default skin. Intelligence continues scaling her abilities while also giving her some additional magic defense. And finally, Armor. Armor is still useful, especially against physical pressure capable of reaching Polaris, but because of her backline positioning, I consider it the lowest priority of the current options. If Polaris eventually receives another Magic Attack or Health skin, that immediately becomes extremely interesting. Moving into Glyphs, Polaris has Magic Attack, Health, Magic Defense, Magical Critical Hit Chance, and Intelligence. I would begin with Magic Attack. Again, we want those first 3 skills scaling as early as possible. Then Magical Critical Hit Chance. Polaris already has respectable magic damage, so introducing the possibility of magical critical hits gives her another offensive layer. After that, Intelligence. It continues improving her magic attack while providing some additional magic defense. Then Health, giving her more overall survivability. And finally, Magic Defense. She's intelligence-based and naturally develops decent magic defense, which is why I would leave this one until the end. Bring all 5 glyphs to level 40. I wouldn't push beyond that unless you're specifically pursuing the skill class system. Now let's move into Artifacts. Polaris's Weapon Artifact provides magical critical hit chance to the team whenever she uses her first skill. Her book gives her Magic Attack and Magical Critical Hit Chance, and her ring increases intelligence. For me, the book comes first. It's an excellent combination for Polaris because we're directly strengthening her magic attack while also improving her magical critical hit potential. Second comes the ring. More intelligence means more magic attack, stronger scaling for her abilities, and some additional magic defense. And finally, the weapon. The team-wide magical critical hit chance can absolutely be valuable, particularly inside the correct magical composition, but I would still prioritize Polaris's individual development through the book and ring first. For Gift of the Elements, max it. Polaris may stand safely in the back line, but don't make the mistake of assuming she doesn't need proper development. Take the health, take the magic attack, build her properly. Because the longer Polaris remains active, the longer she can control the battlefield and, most importantly, enable Aurora Borealis. Now, the Talismans. Polaris currently has 2 excellent options. Her first talisman provides intelligence and magical critical hit chance. This is a very strong offensive combination. Intelligence helps scale her magic attack and abilities, while magical critical hit chance gives her additional damage potential. And this talisman is permanently available through the Eternal Frontier shop. Her second talisman takes a completely different direction: toughness and health. Instead of maximizing offense, we're giving Polaris significantly more survivability. And I actually like having these 2 different possibilities. One allows us to push Polaris offensively. The other helps keep one of the most important pieces of our composition alive. Which one you use can depend completely on the opponent and what your team needs from Polaris in that particular battle. Now, how do we stop her? And this is where understanding Polaris's mechanics becomes extremely important. Sebastian is one of the obvious answers. Ballad of Tenacity protects his team against stuns. And if you're removing or preventing Polaris's primary control mechanic, you're also interfering with the conditions she needs to exploit Aurora Borealis. That's a massive interaction. Soleil can also punish control-heavy compositions. Every time those control abilities are being used, you're giving Soleil opportunities to respond, and Polaris can eventually find her own control working against her. Then we have Satori. Remember Glacial Fortress? Every attack against the obstacle gives Polaris additional energy. That acceleration can become dangerous when you're facing a hero capable of punishing energy gains. Silence is another excellent weapon. Heroes such as Thea, Crow, and Mushian Shroom can prevent Polaris from freely executing her abilities and disrupt the entire control cycle before it gets established. Corvus can also become extremely dangerous depending on Polaris's health and how frequently her AoE damage interacts with his altar. And finally, Leanne and Somna can create their own control interactions if Polaris touches them, delaying her and disrupting the rhythm she wants to establish. So Guardians, what's the final verdict on Polaris? For me, she remains one of the greatest free-to-play opportunities Hero Wars Alliance has ever given players, and potentially the best. But don't look at Polaris and only see the stuns. Don't look only at her personal damage. And definitely don't build her without understanding Aurora Borealis. That's the heart of this hero. 50% increased magic damage against enemies affected by Radiance, and 100% increased damage when that magic damage comes from progress heroes. That's enormous. Build around stuns. Create repeated control. Give Polaris heroes capable of exploiting that amplification. And suddenly, you're not simply controlling the enemy. You're controlling them while dramatically increasing the punishment they receive. That's why Polaris remains such a special hero. And that's why, even today, I believe she's one of the strongest investments available to free-to-play players. But now, I want to hear from you. Are you still using Polaris? Which team are you currently using around her? And do you consider her the best free-to-play hero we've ever received? Tell us in the comments. If this guide helped you, leave a like, subscribe to Gods of Alliance, and activate notifications so you don't miss our next complete hero guide. Warriors, this is how we play the game. Not randomly, not blindly, with knowledge, with precision, with control. We don't build randomly, we build with intention. Master the mechanics. Control the fight. Let's break the game together.